The power of belief during impossible circumstances is not some poetic idea. It's the foundation of every great victory in human history. Time and again, we've seen that when everything around a person says no, belief is what says yes. When the path is unclear, when resources are gone, when friends have faded, and strength is nearly spent, belief remains the one thing that can't be stolen. It's in those moments, those crossroads of despair and destiny, that belief doesn't whisper, it roars. In the Bible, we are said to walk by faith and not by sight. That means the evidence doesn't always come first. It means we may stand in the middle of a desert and still expect rain. It means we plant seeds even when we have no proof of the harvest. It's not foolishness, it's divine alignment, because the world calls it impossible right up until it's done. Think of the widow with nothing but a jar of oil. Her future looked like starvation, but belief opened the door for provision she couldn't see. She didn't argue with the odds, she just obeyed, trusted, poured, and the oil kept flowing. That's belief under pressure. That's what happens when you stop measuring your future by the size of your problem and start measuring it by the power of your God. We are told in the Bible that if we have faith the size of a mustard seed, mountains can move. But it's not the size of belief that stirs heaven. It's the decision to hold on to it when fear screams louder. Because belief is not proven in comfort, it's proven in crisis, and those who dare to believe when everything says quit are the ones who shape the future. Belief does not promise an easy journey, but it always leads to a meaningful one. It turns setbacks into setups, pain into purpose, and detours into destinations. It's not a shield from hardship, it's a sword through it. It's what separates the ones who dream from the ones who do. And make no mistake, every miracle you've ever read about began with someone who chose to believe despite what they saw. In the Bible, we are said that hope does not disappoint, because it is rooted in something eternal. Belief unlocks that hope. It's what lets the prisoner praise before the chains break. It's what lets the sick say, "I am healed," even before the cure comes. And it's what allows you, no matter where you are right now, to look forward. Not because the road is easy, but because the one who walks with you is greater than what stands against you. This is not about blind optimism. It's about eyes wide open, looking at giants and still choosing to fight. It's about knowing the odds, and defying them anyway, because when belief is present, even the impossible starts to tremble. There is something profoundly inspiring about watching ordinary people do extraordinary things. Not the ones born into greatness or equipped with every advantage, but the ones who rise from the dust, who come from quiet places and still shake the world. These are the people who remind us that greatness isn't a title or a spotlight. It's a choice made in private long before anyone ever notices. And time and again, it's the ones least expected who become the ones most remembered. In the Bible, we are said that God chooses the foolish things of the world to shame the wise, and the weak things to shame the strong. That means you don't need to be the most qualified. You don't have to come from the best background. You don't need applause or approval. What you need is the willingness to say yes when God calls your name. Because history has never been shaped by crowds. It's been shaped by individuals who decided they would not be defined by their limitations. Think about David, a shepherd boy with no armor, no army, no experience. All he had was a slingshot, some stones, and a heart that believed. No one in the crowd believed he could win, not even his own brothers. But it's never about who believes in you. It's about whether you believe in the one who created you. David ran toward the giant, not because he trusted in his aim, but because he trusted in his God. And the moment he acted, heaven moved. Ordinary people become extraordinary not because they are fearless, but because they act in spite of fear. In the Bible, we are said that the righteous are as bold as a lion. That's not natural boldness. It's supernatural courage that comes when a person knows they are walking in purpose. It's what allows someone to step into unknown territory, carry out unthinkable tasks, and influence generations long after they're gone. We often think we need a platform to make a difference, but that's not true. The greatest changes begin in the unseen places, in living rooms, in late nights, in quiet prayers. Moses didn't change the course of a nation from a throne. He was in the wilderness, arguing with God about his own inadequacy. But once he said yes, everything shifted. And just like him, what disqualifies you in your eyes may be the very reason you're chosen in God's. In the Bible, we are said that we are more than conquerors, not because we never fall, but because we rise each time with something stronger inside. Every time an ordinary person dares to believe they are called, heaven takes notice, because God doesn't need perfection. He needs permission. He doesn't need the polished. He needs the willing. And when that willingness is present, even the smallest act can ignite a fire that spreads across generations. Adversity is not the enemy. It is often the refining fire through which our true purpose is revealed. No one becomes stronger by avoiding pain. Strength is forged in the furnace. Purpose is uncovered not in moments of comfort, but in moments of pressure, in the long nights when everything inside you is tested. It is in adversity that we discover who we are, what we're made of, and most importantly, who we trust. In the Bible, we are said that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. There's a process that pain activates, a divine development that takes place beneath the surface. When we go through hard times, we often ask why, but sometimes the better question is, what is this forming in me? Because there are things we only learn when the light is gone, and all we have left is faith. Look at Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, locked in prison. For years, it looked like his life was going in the opposite direction of his dream. But in reality, every setback was part of a setup. In the Bible, we are said that what others meant for evil, God can use for good. Joseph didn't just survive the pit and the prison. He came out prepared. He didn't just interpret dreams, he fulfilled one, but it took the hardship to make him ready for the blessing. We want purpose without pressure, but they are inseparable. Purpose is revealed when comfort is stripped away, and all that remains is conviction. That's when the fire inside burns hotter than the fire around. That's when people stop pretending and start becoming. And if we allow it, adversity will not just test our character, it will deepen it. It will cleanse us of pride, of distractions, of anything that doesn't align with who we were created to be. In the Bible, we are said that those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. It doesn't say they avoid the storm, it says they are renewed in it. That kind of renewal doesn't come from shallow faith. It comes from walking through things you didn't think you'd survive and coming out with a testimony instead of a scar. That's what God does in the fire. He shapes purpose from pain. So when the pressure comes, and it will, don't despise it, don't run from it, lean into it, because that very pressure may be the signal that your purpose is near. Diamonds are formed under intense force. Gold is refined by flame, and your calling is no different. You were never meant to be average. You were meant to reflect something greater, something unshakable. And sometimes it takes a storm to prove what's unshakable in you. Decision fueled by courage, rooted in conviction, and guided by faith, can shift the course of not just a life, but a legacy. We tend to think change happens in waves, in revolutions, in grand moments seen by the world. But more often than not, real change begins quietly, in the heart of someone who decides they will no longer be ruled by fear. In the Bible, we are said to be strong and courageous, to not be terrified, for the Lord our God goes with us. That's not encouragement for the confident, it's a command for the willing. Think of Esther. She was not a warrior. She had no throne of her own, no army, no voice before she chose to speak. But in a moment when the fate of her people hung in the balance, she made one decision: to risk everything for what was right. She could have stayed silent. She could have chosen safety. But instead, she stepped into the fire, knowing full well what it could cost her. And that single act of courage saved a nation. It didn't take 1,000 speeches or a long campaign. It took one choice made in fear with faith. In the Bible, we are said that perfect love casts out fear. Not temporary love, not conditional love, perfect love. the kind that doesn't retreat when the cost is high. That love gives you the boldness to stand when others sit, to speak when others stay silent, to move when everything tells you to wait. And once that decision is made, it becomes a spark, because courage is contagious. It ignites those around you. What begins with one choice in one heart can ripple out like wildfire, touching places and people you'll never even meet. Sometimes the decision seems small, apologizing when pride says don't, showing up when it would be easier to stay home, saying yes when everything inside you screams that you're not ready. But it's never just about the decision. It's about the obedience. In the Bible, we are said that obedience is better than sacrifice. That means God is more moved by our yes than by our excuses. Because a single yes in the hands of God can multiply in ways we can't imagine. The truth is, every giant ever defeated started with one decision to pick up a stone. Every wall that ever fell began with one march of faith. Every story of breakthrough, healing, and redemption begins with someone who said, "I won't live in fear anymore." That's how legacies are written, not in comfort, but in courage. And when that decision is made, not only does it change the person making it, it leaves a trail for others to follow. Because one act of courage speaks louder than 1,000 opinions. And when faith drives the decision, heaven moves through it. The difference one life can make when driven by faith and vision is immeasurable. We often underestimate the power of a single person who decides to live with purpose, to walk in alignment with something greater than themselves. When faith fuels your vision, you stop living just to exist. You start living to make an impact that outlives you. In the Bible, we are said that we are God's workmanship, created for good works that were prepared in advance for us to do. That means you aren't here by accident. Your life carries weight, and what you do with it can change the course of someone else's story. Look at Noah, a man who heard a call that made no sense to the world around him. There was no rain, no flood in sight, yet he built an ark out of obedience to a vision no one else could see. People laughed, doubted, and mocked him, but Noah wasn't building for their approval. He was building for a future only faith could imagine. And when the floodwaters came, that single act of obedience preserved a generation. One life, fully surrendered, became the vessel for a new beginning. We are quick to believe that our actions are too small, our influence too limited. But in the Bible, we are said not to despise small beginnings, because the Lord rejoices to see the work begin. Purpose rarely starts with applause or recognition. It starts with quiet consistency, with doing what's right even when no one is watching. It's in those moments that legacies are formed, not by chance, but by intentional steps of faith. Think of how Jesus chose 12 ordinary men fishermen, tax collectors, men without status or power. Yet through them, the world was turned upside down. Why? Because they carried a vision bigger than themselves. They didn't always understand it, and they certainly weren't perfect, but they were willing. And that willingness became the foundation of something eternal. One life impacts another, and before long, generations are changed. You may never see the full scope of the impact your life has, but that doesn't mean it isn't there. Every word of encouragement, every act of kindness, every time you choose to forgive when bitterness would be easier, that's vision in action. In the Bible, we are said to let our light shine before others, that they may see our good works and glorify our Father in heaven. Your light isn't meant to be hidden. It's meant to guide others out of darkness. The world may try to convince you that one person can't make a difference, but history and heaven tell a different story. Time and again, it's the ones who dared to believe, who refused to settle, who followed the vision placed in their heart, that left footprints others could follow. And when that vision is anchored in faith, it doesn't just change circumstances, it transforms lives. There will always be voices that tell you it's too late, that you've missed your moment, that the opportunity is gone. But those voices don't speak for heaven. As long as there is breath in your lungs, there is purpose in your steps. In the Bible, we are said that God's gifts and calling are without repentance, meaning they are never taken back. Time may pass, seasons may shift, But what God has placed inside of you is still alive, still waiting to be activated. You haven't been disqualified. You've just been delayed, and sometimes delay is preparation in disguise. Think about Moses. He was 80 years old when God called him to lead a nation out of slavery. 40 years earlier, he tried to do it in his own strength and failed. He fled to the desert, probably convinced his story was over, but God hadn't forgotten, and when the time was right, the same man who once ran in fear was called to return in power. Age didn't disqualify him. Failure didn't stop him, because when God's hand is on your life, He doesn't erase the mission. He rewrites the timing. In the Bible, we are said that though the vision may tarry, wait for it will surely come and not delay. God is never late. He doesn't operate on our clocks, but He's always on time, and what feels like waiting is often building. It's shaping your heart, strengthening your spirit, and deepening your dependence. That dream you buried under disappointment, it can rise again. That fire you thought had gone out, one spark of faith can reignite it. There are no expiration dates on God's promises. He called Abraham to become the father of many nations when he and Sarah were far past childbearing age. The world said it was impossible. Nature said it couldn't happen. But in the Bible, we are said that with God, all things are possible. And when Abraham chose to believe, he unlocked a legacy that still impacts the world today. One act of faith in a late hour still carries power. So don't count yourself out. Don't let the past write your future. You may have made mistakes, but grace is still greater. You may feel forgotten, but heaven knows your name. You may have lost time, but God can redeem it. He can restore what was broken, renew what was wasted, and resurrect what was dead. In the Bible, we are said that He makes all things new, not some things. All things, you are not too old, too far gone, or too late. You are right on time for what you were created to do. And if you'll dare to believe again, to step forward with even a mustard seed of faith, you'll see that the same God who called you is still with you, still working, still waiting for your yes.